What's up, fantasy managers? Welcome back to another episode of the First Pitch Podcast brought to you by PitcherList.com. My name is Jake Crumpler, and I'll be your host for this edition of the pod. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake Crumpler, and you can find all of my work at CrumplerBaseball.com. Let's dive into everything baseball related from Monday, June 30th. We'll start it off, as always, with the transactions, injuries, news, and notes from around the league, kicking things off with the bad news as infielder Casey Schmidt was placed on the 10-day IL with a wrist bone bruise. Looks like Christian Koss will continue to cover Schmidt at the hot corner. He's actually been leading off for the Giants in recent days. He's coming off 4 straight multi-hit games, so Koss will take over at the hot corner for the Giants. In a corresponding move, Tyler Fitzgerald was recalled from the minors. He will reclaim everyday second base duties in San Francisco, which will force Brett Wisely into a bench role. That's all in a corresponding move to Casey Schmidt's IL placement. Next, we have starting pitcher Zach Eflin, who was placed on the 15-day IL with lower back discomfort. In a corresponding move, Brandon Young was recalled from the minors and will start today in Texas. And our last IL placement involves shortstop Jeremy Pena, who was placed on the 10-day IL with a fractured rib that will likely keep him out for quite a while. In a corresponding move, looks like Mauricio Dubon will take over at shortstop. He has been playing there over the last few days as Pena's been attempting to determine what the injury he's been dealing with. So with Dubon moving to shortstop, that will allow Jose Altuve to see all of his playing time at the keystone position, which will give Cooper Hummel more run in left field for the Astros. In terms of transactions, starting pitcher Matt Waldron was recalled from the minors to start in Philadelphia on Monday. He tossed 4 2/3 innings, allowing 6 hits and 4 earned runs while walking 6 and punching out 3. He induced 5 whiffs with 21% CSW across 104 pitches. Clearly didn't have the best control of his knuckleball. A hard pitch to control, so I can't blame him. In a corresponding move, Sean Reynolds was optioned to the minors. Next, we have catcher Shea Langeliers, who had been out with an oblique strain for a few weeks. He was activated from the 10-day IL and will return to being the A's everyday catcher. Willie McIver was optioned to the minors in a corresponding move, and Austin Wynns will shift into a backup role for the A's, backing up Langeliers as a catcher. The A's also optioned outfielder JJ Bleday to the minors. He has really struggled this year after last year's, underrated breakout. Prior to his demotion, Bleday batted .204 with 6 homers, 2 steals, and an 80 WRC plus. And since being recalled with limited playing time, he's been even worse, batting .135 with 2 homers and a 69 WRC plus. So with Bleday heading to the minors, the A's will promote one of their top prospects, outfielder Colby Thomas. He had his contract selected from the minors. According to MLB Pipeline, Thomas is the number 2 A's prospect. Last year, very impressive. Between AA and AAA, batted .277 with 31 homers, 15 steals, and a 126 WRC plus. This year, he is supporting that impressive season at AAA. Thomas has batted .297 with 17 homers, 7 steals, and a 111 WRC plus. Strikeouts will probably be an issue for Thomas, as he's striking out more than a quarter of the time at the game's second highest level, but he does hit the ball hard and will be on the short side of a left field platoon with Tyler Soderstrom. That's Colby Thomas. And lastly, first baseman Bryce Harper was activated from the 10-day IL. He had been out with wrist inflammation and will return to being the Phillies' everyday first baseman, which will force Otto Kemp to the bench. In terms of news, first baseman Jake Berger is expected to be activated from the 10-day IL on Friday. He'd been out for a while with an oblique strain, and he may return to being on the short side of a first place platoon with Josh Smith playing every day at first base and doing so admirably, leading off for the Rangers. So Berger may have limited playing time when he returns. The Rangers are also expected to return outfielder Wyatt Langford from the 10-day IL on Saturday. He had also been out with an oblique strain and will reclaim everyday left field duties for the Rangers. And lastly, outfielder Yankiel Fernandez is expected to be recalled from the minors. He is the Rockies' number 5 prospect at AAA this year, batted .284 with 13 homers, but just a 96 WRC plus. However, Fernandez has sported a 14% strikeout rate, so pretty interesting. I think he should play pretty well in the majors. However, it's unclear whether or not Fernandez will get consistent playing time for the Rockies. You know how they are with their young players. It would likely mean that Mickey Moniak heads to the bench if he does get consistent playing time, so definitely something worth watching. Now we'll head to our notable performances from Monday, a day in which we had just 8 games on our slate. We'll start it off with our hitters, leading off with outfielder Willie Abreu, who helped the Red Sox to win against the Reds, going 2 for 5 with 2 runs, 2 homers, and 5 runs batted in. He's up to 16 homers on the year now. First one traveled 423 feet at 104 miles per hour. Didn't even leave the park. Inside the park home run for Willie Abreu. Second one, a lot shorter, 407 feet, 109 miles per hour, but returned a grand slam. So he was on the extreme ends of home runs there, Willie Abreu. He opened the season on pace to enter superstar status. I was a little bit confused. I was like, really? He's this good? But he did end up cooling off and spent some time on the IL this month. Still, Abreu is in the midst of a solid follow-up to his impressive first full season. Most notably, he's added more power, turning his doubles into homers, as he's already set a career high in the dinger category. StatCast fully supports this more powerful version of Abreu, even suggesting he's been slightly underperforming, but he'll be limited by his platoon splits, which force him to the bench against Southpaws. However, he clearly deserves to be rostered in the majority of leagues with his 30 homer power and spot in the middle of the Boston lineup. Next, we have first baseman Spencer Horwitz, who helped the Pirates to win against the Cardinals, going 2 for 4 with a run, a double, a home run, and 3 runs batted in. It was his second homer of the year, and it traveled 408 feet at 107 miles per hour. Horwitz was interesting enough last year to be part of back-to-back offseason trades that ultimately landed him in Pittsburgh. I was excited about him because of his impressive plate discipline metrics, as he recorded an 11% walk rate and an 18% strikeout rate with the Blue Jays last year, but he has not had the same success this year, despite being deployed as the Pirates' leadoff hitter against righties. Horwitz is walking just 9% of the time this year while striking out almost a quarter of the time. The trade-off, though, has been improved batted ball quality, as he's got his barrel rate into the double digits, but ultimately a 30-point drop in xWOBA and 42-point drop in WRC plus suggests that Horwitz has been markedly worse in 2025. His role makes him viable in 15-team leagues and deeper. As I mentioned, he's leading off for the Pirates against righties, but he'll need to return to being more selective to become standard league relevant. Lastly, we have outfielder Randy Arozarena, who helped the Mariners to win against the Royals, going 2 for 4 with 2 runs, 2 home runs, and 4 runs batted in. He's up to 10 dingers now. First one traveled 395 feet at 104 miles per hour. Second one went 401 feet at 106 miles per hour. Arozarena has been one of the most consistent power speed threats since his 2020 breakout, producing 4 consecutive 2020 seasons. Last year was rough, though, as he attempted to tap into more power by lifting the ball more, but ultimately hurt his batting average. He batted just .219 as the increased fly ball percentage revealed Arozarena's reliance on a high BABIP. But he's back on track this year, batting .244 while showcasing his best hard hit percentage of his career. And instead of hitting the ball in the air more, he's been more focused on pulling the ball to tap into his power. Seattle's ballpark will likely cap Arozarena's ceiling, but there's nothing suggesting he won't continue his streak of 2020's campaigns, making him rosterable universally. But if you'd like more information on notable hitting performances from Monday, check out the Daily Batters Box article over on PitcherList.com. Now we'll head to the mound and check out some notable starting pitching performances, opening with Andrew Heaney, who helped the Pirates to win against the Cardinals, tossing 6 2/3 shutout innings, allowing just 3 hits and 1 walk while punching out 7. He induced 8 whiffs with 24% CSW across 95 pitches. Usually a pitcher who relies heavily on his curve, it took a backseat on Monday as Heaney focused on his fastballs, pumping sinkers for 91% strikes and 30% CSW, while keeping his four-seamer upstairs to return a trio of whiffs and 6 out of 7 outs on balls in play. Heaney's changeup had Cardinals hitters chasing all day, but it missed the zone too often to truly be effective in this one. And I really don't trust Heaney without a dope breaker to support his mediocre heaters. So even with the Mariners in Seattle up next, I think I'm staying away from Andrew Heaney. Next, we have Ryan Nelson, who helped the Diamondbacks to win against the Giants, tossing 6 2/3 innings, allowing 5 hits and 2 earned runs while walking nobody and punching out 7. He induced 15 whiffs with 26% CSW across 88 pitches. And we really shouldn't be surprised to see a great fastball from Nelson, but it was cooking again on Monday as it was thrown 71% of the time and returned 13 whiffs as well as 15 foul balls and 7 out of 10 outs on balls in play. Nelson hasn't needed much support in recent starts for that fastball, but he wouldn't have made it through nearly 7 frames without his slider showing up for 82% strikes and 36% CSW. Nelson has such an impressive base with his elite heater, but I'd love to see what he could do if he incorporated his secondaries more. I think we just have to keep riding this Vargas rule now with the Royals up next, as nobody can touch Nelson's four-seamer right now. Lastly, we have Max Scherzer, who helped the Blue Jays to win against the Yankees, tossing 5 innings, allowing 3 hits and 2 earned runs, walking nobody while punching out 7. He induced 8 whiffs with 34% CSW across 71 pitches. It's just his third start of the season, but it's his best by far. Scherzer's cutter was integral to his success in this one, returning 90% strikes and 60% CSW, keeping him in at-bats all night, as his four-seamer failed to reliably earn strikes, but was taken for 9 called strikes and 31% CSW, while Scherzer's curveball and slider worked in tandem to keep hitters off the heaters. However, he's still working on his command of those breakers, and that will be the final piece for Scherzer to return to form. But with his ability to avoid loud contact, as well as the success of his glue pitch in that cutter, I'm not thinking twice about starting Scherzer versus the Angels next. But if you'd like a breakdown of every single start from Monday, give the Plus Pitch podcast a listen and check out Nick's daily SP roundup over on pitcherlist.com. Now we'll head to the bullpen and check out the relievers that got saves and the closers that pitched outside of save situations or blew their saves. Starting with the former, Jeff Hoffman recorded his 19th save with a scoreless ninth. Mason Miller recorded his 16th save with a scoreless ninth. And Shelby Miller pitched a perfect 4-out save to rack up save number 10. In terms of closers to pitch outside of save situations or blow their saves, Pete Fairbanks pitched the ninth in a tie game and surrendered 2 runs to take his second loss of the season. Robert Garcia pitched a clean ninth in a tie game before allowing 2 runs in the 10th. The Rangers would go on to lose that one in 11. And lastly, Felix Bautista pitched a hitless ninth in that game against the Rangers. But if you'd like more information on relievers, check out Rick Graham's weekly articles over on pitcherlist.com. And before we look forward to today's games, we're going to take a quick break. Now look forward to Tuesday, July 1st, a day in which we'll have a full slate of 15 games. My matchup of the day is Christopher Sanchez versus Nick Pivetta. Pivetta, I think, has been incredible this year, underratedly so in my opinion, as I feel like he's been a little bit low on the list for a while, but he continues to impress, continues to have a lot of success. And I sort of called it a little bit in the offseason, suggesting that now that he's out of a homer-prone ballpark, he might finally have that breakout we've been waiting for. And we've been seeing that, while Christopher Sanchez on the other side is always a blast to watch with his sinker changeup combination. In terms of probable starters, we've got 8 guys in the auto starts tier, including both Sanchez and Pivetta. We've also got Paul Skeens versus the Cardinals, Jacob deGrom versus the Orioles, and Max Fried in Toronto. Our probably starts tier has 6 guys, and that's where we'll find our streamer of the day in Richard Fitts versus the Reds. It's the Reds outside of Cincinnati. However, it is in Fenway, so it's a little bit risky. Fitts, though, is dope. He's got above average pitches across the board. None of them really stand out, but it should be enough to take out the Reds outside of Cincinnati. I'd also keep an eye out for Edward Cabrera versus the Twins. He doesn't really have an idea of exactly his game plan, but his stuff is so good and his command has been much better, or at least his control has been much better this year, that I think Cabrera should survive against the Twins. In terms of hitter suggestions, I'd be looking at Paul Goldschmidt versus Kevin Gausman in Rogers Center. He's batted .538 with a homer and a .1436 OPS in 13 at-bats against Gausman. I'd also look at Giancarlo Stanton versus Kevin Gausman as well in Rogers Center. Stanton has batted .318 with 2 homers and a 1,011 OPS in 22 at-bats against Gausman. I'd also look at Max Kepler versus the aforementioned Nick Pivetta in Citizens Bank Ballpark. Kepler has batted .429 with a homer and a 1286 OPS in a small sample of 7 at-bats against Pivetta. I also like Alec Burleson versus Paul Skeens in PNC Park. Probably not one that most people are going to be streaming, so you could get really lucky that he's going to be available all over the place here if you're doing some sort of daily streaming service. Burleson has batted .400 with a .905 OPS and 15 at-bats against Skeens. Notably, also, Nolan Arenado has had a lot of success against Paul Skeens. I'm also looking at Ozzie Albies versus Tyler Anderson in Truist Park. This one might be the most notable. Albies has batted .667 with a trio of homers and a 3,000 OPS in just 6 at-bats against Tyler Anderson. I also like Patrick Bailey versus Zach Gallen in Chase Field. He's batted .429 with a homer and a 1429 OPS in 7 at-bats. And lastly, I'll be targeting Astros and Rockies hitters in Coors Field. Pretty self-explanatory. Best offensive ballpark in baseball. We'll see southpaw Colton Gordon of the Astros square off against right-hander Chase Dolander. And I will close things out with our relievers to watch. Felix Bautista has pitched on back-to-back days, and Sir Anthony Dominguez threw 30 pitches on Monday, so expect Brian Baker to get a save for the Orioles on Tuesday. Jeff Hoffman has pitched on back-to-back days, so I'd expect Yariel Rodriguez to get a shot at a save on Tuesday for the Blue Jays. And lastly, Robert Garcia has pitched in 3 of the past 4 days, so Luke Jackson should be the Rangers closer on Tuesday. But that'll do it for today's episode of the First Pitch Podcast. Make sure to head on over to pitcherlist.com to check out all of the great articles and features we have on the site. Sign up for PL Plus or PL Pro to gain access to the Discord and to support the Pitcher List staff. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake Crumpler. Tune in live on YouTube tomorrow and every day for a new installment of the podcast. And make sure to enjoy the day as we are blessed with another day of baseball.